Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome into the week 2 edition of the Sunday Sideline Report here on the Sports Insanity Network, sponsored by the Dugout of Millwood. Mike Rifkin, the old ops guy, Danny Boy Reginald. Gentlemen, first and foremost, Happy New Year.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And second, how are we doing this morning?
Ready for another exciting week.
Dan?
Obviously the damper has been taken into my football team, but I'm still confident that they will make it. That they're going to be very competitive this year. I really do believe that. That was a gutsy win over the Buffalo Bills on Monday night. And defense, Zach Wilson being a good game manager, not turning the ball over a lot. It was almost clean, except for that Milano interception, which I hate that dude. And then just pure good performance by the defense. And Olaf's guy, we were talking about it off air for a little bit about how the two defenses are going to battle each other, and it's going to be wild. I expect a wild game in Dallas at 4:00 today. It's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, and we'll get into it as we get through our programming. But this is literally, and the only reason why I can say it this way, Dan, is Dallas defense is number 1 in the league. Jets defense are number 2 in the league. And the only reason I can say that is because the Jets actually gave up points. That's it. That's the only reason why they're number 2.
Yeah.
It's going to be a primetime battle in Dallas, yes.
All right. So Dan alluded to it, and that's where we'll start the show. If you didn't watch this Monday night, you're probably living under a rock somewhere. But Aaron Rodgers, the savior of the New York Jets, tore his Achilles. He is out for the season, although he said on the Pat McAfee show that he's going to try to come back because of some special surgery he had. But anyway, he says if the Jets make a playoff run, he could return.
He's a prick. He's such a prick. The dude can't wait a full year to heal and recover in order to return to a team. Like, come on, man. Like, I understand you want and this is how I know this whole Aaron Rodgers thing is all BS on his end too.
Mm-hmm.
He'll never admit it, but this is how I know it's all BS on his end. He's like, oh, I want to help out the team. I really want to be there. I want to do all that. No. This is all about him. This is all about him. This is not about the team. This is about him. He wants to be the guy to lead the Jets to a Super Bowl. He wants to be the guy to lead Jets to a playoff berth. He wants to be the face of the franchise. So now that Zach Wilson is QB1, obviously due to circumstances under nobody's control, obviously right. It is what it is. He injured his Achilles, he's out for the season. He cannot stand the fact that the team is going to play without him. So he's going to do whatever it takes to come back and make it all about him. Like, I thought this was a team effort. I thought he was embracing the idea of being that veteran leader, that presence. He can't even take it aside to maybe to be like a mentor to the team throughout the season. Come on, man. That's how that tells me everything that I need to know about Aaron Rodgers. He does not care about the team, he cares about himself. And that's why he's going to do the stupid thing and try to rehab and try to come back in January, when in reality, the best thing he should do is to take the year, actually rehab the Achilles. I know this is innovative surgery, and I believe him and his doctor when they say that this innovative procedure actually calls for a quicker recovery time. I do believe that. I believe modern medicine has made that possible. I believe in science. But it would be smarter if he were just to take the year off and come back by training camp 2024. Is that tough to ask?
Oh,
Here's the 2 cents I'll give off of what you said, Dan. First thing is now he believes in science. This is a guy who's openly questioned a lot of things. Now he wants to believe in science, what it's
That was
good
good.
for him.
Exactly. Selfish.
Listen, I was a big Aaron Rodgers fan until he went to the Jets as division rival. Can't like him. The other part for me is, and I don't think people bring this up enough, is everyone wants to compare this to Cam Akers last year, who got hurt in July. He comes back in January for the Rams. Cam Akers is in his mid-20s. Aaron Rodgers is 40 years old.
Yeah.
The rehab is not going to be easy. He's got wear and tear on his body. He obviously keeps himself in good enough shape, but still, we're talking not about a 20-year-old or a 22-year-old rehabbing. We're talking about 40 years old trying to rehab in 4 to 5 months. That's just not a thing that
Realistic.
Right, exactly. It's not realistic, Mark.
no, it's not realistic for especially a 40-year-old, as I'm one of them who's had so many surgeries. I'm still recovering from ones that I had 2 years ago. So no, none of them were Achilles. They were back. But no, Aaron Rodgers, like Mike said, I had a lot of respect for in Green Bay. I really did. He is still one of the best players to step on a gridiron. However, that being said, to me, I look at one player only to compare this right now, and that's Dan Marino, who actually came back, was one of only the first quarterbacks that I can think of, came back from Achilles tendon surgery. And the road he described and showed is a really, really long one for someone in that stage of age. Yes, I'm saying
He was in his 30s.
yeah, but still in the mid-30s, and we're talking about surgery that is not modernized like it is now. We're going back old-fashioned Achilles. It's a year to 14-month recovery. I believe the doctors. I believe it's a possibility.
Of course.
Sit out the year and see what your body does and how it returns. If you can't return to football because whatever, return some money to the New York Jets fans who bought season tickets to see you play. That's it. That's all I can say. That's $75 million. That's guaranteed. Return some of it.
The dude's a selfish prick. Bottom line, he does not care about what the Jets do. He cares about himself. This is all about him. All this media hoopla about him trying to return. This is also that the attention stays on him. Because imagine if the Jets actually go to the playoffs without him. Like, can you imagine the narrative? Oh, maybe the Jets don't need Aaron Rodgers.
Well, great segue, Dan, because you said it. Zach Wilson's now the guy. Former number 2 overall pick.
Yeah.
Can he lead the Jets to the playoffs?
I don't think he can. But I am going to believe in him. Because you have to. You have no choice.
Mhm.
Jets don't want to get another quarterback to replace him. They cemented him as the backup at the beginning of training camp. So, bottom line is this. Whether Jet fans like it or not, I don't like it. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We have to get behind this kid. We have to. And I know it's a lot to ask, but look, as long as he stays clean, he can manage the game, run the football, rely on receivers like Garrett Wilson to make big plays, and allow your defense to make the big plays to win games. That's the formula. And as you go through the season, Nathaniel Hackett, look, he's regarded as one of the best offensive coordinators. What did he take Bortles to the AFC Championship game or something like that?
Yes.
I believe.
Yeah, I believe it
Yeah.
was 4. And he's been with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, so if he's as good as he says he is, and as everyone says he is, he would be smart and he would develop a game plan, a playbook designed for Zach Wilson's skill set, which means a lot of end arounds, a lot of quarterback runs like they do with Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. Maybe a bit of a play action, maybe a bit of screens here and there. If he were smart, he would design that playbook specifically for Zach Wilson, while also having Zach Wilson be a game manager. And as long as you can get that and have all the other aspects fall into place, like I said, I think that this Jet team could very well make the playoffs. I am not going to say they're going to win the division. I think Buffalo's better. I know we killed Josh Allen for the game on Monday night, and rightfully so. But I think he's still a far better quarterback than anyone else in the division. I think Miami's more of a threat to the division for Buffalo than the Jets are. And, look, if we make it as a wild card, make it to the playoffs, it proves everyone wrong about this team. Because they couldn't wait to say that the Jets were out of it the second Zach Wilson was named to start.
Mark, same question. Can Zach Wilson lead the Jets to the playoffs?
It's a hard job to ask of him, but the team is in place to do so. And I think Dan touched it on one little thing, is that the playbook has to be redesigned. Yes, it's not an easy task to have one playbook in mind and then say, oh, wait, we got to switch it up. If you're making that type of money a year, you learn to adapt and adjust as quick as you can. So yes, if they change the playbook and they can get it on a line and the defense plays just as good as it did against the Bills, then with their schedule, yeah, I think Zach Wilson can do it. But I also agree with Dan is that it will not be as a division head, but a wild card spot if they play like they did. Mind you, this week is going to be a much tougher challenge, but that's just one game. They're not going to win out the season. They're going to lose some games, but it's a possibility.
And you talk about the early portion of the schedule. They still have games coming up. Eventually, they play the Chiefs. They play Philly. They'll have a rematch with the Bills. Obviously, they have 2 with New England. So
I'm relying on that defense.
Right.
That's how strong I feel about the Jets defense, because yes, I'm biased with the Dallas defense, but I look at that Jets defense and I see greatness right there.
Well, it's not just the defense. I saw a healthy Breece Hall on Monday night, and that's massive. If you could get Breece Hall, you get Dalvin Cook, and they could keep each other fresh. All Zach Wilson has to do is manage the game. Don't make him throw the ball 40 times a game. That's not what you are. Embrace the Rex Ryan effect of being ground and pound. So, can he get them to the playoffs? Yeah, he can. Will he? That's another statement.
Yeah, I think that's where I sort of confuse myself here. I believe in Zach Wilson enough that he could do it. It's whether or not he's actually going to do it, and that I just don't feel it like right now. I just don't know.
No, and that's fair. All right, so that's Jet talk. We will get into the Jet Cowboy game later because Lord only knows how these two feel about it. But we had a game already this week. We had a game on Thursday night, which saw Mark's Philadelphia Eagles squeak by the Minnesota Vikings by a score of 34-28. Jalen Hurts, 18-23, 193 yards, a touchdown, an interception, and 2 rushing touchdowns. To quote the great Rick and Morty, the Eagles' offense got swifty with DeAndre Swift, 175 yards and a touchdown. Devontae Smith had 4 catches, $131 and a touchdown. Mark's other favorite quarterback, Kirk Cousins, 31 of 44, 364, and 4 touchdowns. And Justin Jefferson, 11 catches and for 159 yards, and he became the youngest receiver to get to what was it? What was the yardage? Let me just make sure I'm right on this.
Was it 2,000? Because I don't know, but
I'm double checking where I'm at. He now has more yards though than the entire Chicago anybody in Bears history. 5,000 yards. He's the second player in NFL history with 5,000 plus career receiving yards prior to age 25, following another Viking legend, Randy Moss. All right, so we'll dive into the game in a minute, but there is something that has to be noted. After the game, Vikings running back Alexander Madison was sent a bunch of racial slurs in his DMs after the game, also told to commit suicide. Here's a statement from the Vikings, quoting here. "We are sickened by the hatred and racial slurs directed toward Alexander Madison following last night's game. There simply is no room for racist words or actions in sports or society. The Vikings will continue to fight to eliminate hate, to educate, and to foster a diverse, equitable, and inclusive community that respects and values our unique backgrounds. We stand with Alexander and all players who unfortunately experience this type of ignorant and prejudicial behavior, and we ask our fans to continue to fight to eliminate racism." So there's the statement from the Vikings on what Alexander Madison's going through. Mark, you wanted to talk about this, so I'm going to give you the floor first.
Look, obviously, people are going to say what they're going to say, whether it's on one platform and they get kicked off it or not. But this is just absolutely, to take a word out of the politics line, deplorable. This is uncalled for. This is not needed. What are you gaining out of this? There's nothing to gain but make a poor man and his family feel unsafe to go anywhere. There is no room in today's world for this, and it needs to be stopped now more than ever.
Dan?
What is wrong with people? Like, what is wrong with people? Like, why are we doing this to each other? Like, seriously, you know, we live in a world where, you know, it's tough to be a Black man. It's tough to be a Latino. It's tough to be, you know, someone from any other part of the world where your skin color doesn't match the norm. It's tough. On top of that, if you take that out of the equation, we got mental health issues. We have, you know, people who suffer real life things like hunger and homelessness and gun violence and all that stuff. Like, we have real problems in society, and for someone to, you know, take the time. No, Alexa, be quiet. Excuse me. Oh my God, I did not expect that to happen. So, but no, I'm just saying, look, we have real problems in the world. This is clearly one of them, where you're trying to bully people into, you know, feeling like they're not something. And it's not cool. It's not cool, you know. And these are professional athletes too, and it's tough enough that they have a grueling season to deal with. Imagine having some moron just go up and say, you know, kill yourself, or you know, you're a rough, you know whatsy. It's annoying. It's annoying.
I want to go off something Mark said, and then we'll dive more into the game. What do you gain out of this? What does anyone gain from this outside of the fact that you're a narcissistic, pardon my French, you're a narcissistic jackass. If you're just going to go in there, slide into someone's DMs, use racial slurs, it's, Mark, you used the word deplorable. I mean, it's heinous. There's no reason for it. Alexander Madison did nothing to deserve this. This is not warranted. I don't know why people think this is okay. It's not. And to Dan's point, as a society, we need to do better. We need to. There's no reason for everyone to hate. There's no reason to hate anybody or anything. Hate should not be a part of our vocabulary. Everyone should feel. You could be disappointed, but there's no reason to go out and talk like this. It shouldn't happen. I don't care. You know what's right and what's wrong by the time you're 4 or 5 years old. You know the difference between right and wrong, and this is wrong. So, all right, we'll dive into the game a little bit now. Mark, the Eagles now go to 2-0. Your Philadelphia Eagles. What have you seen from the Eagles over the first 2 games of the season?
Seen 2 different teams. We look at the team from week 1 and we look at the team now. Yes, they won both games. I look at the day that Jalen Hurts had against the Vikings, and that's where I'm going to criticize, because it's really the only bad stat of really what it is. And he was 18 for 23, 193 yards, 1-1. Yes, if you have someone like DeAndre Swift who's almost rushing for 200 yards, yeah, the ball's kind of taken out of his hand a little bit like Dak was against the Giants the week before. I don't think that this team is going to hold up mentally, because they're starting to get the issue of A.J. Brown getting like Des Bryant, Terrell Owens, Keyshawn Johnson, give me the damn ball. And they have been fighting multiple times, not only in week 1, but in week 2. So that's what I see. Is my question is how the Eagles are going to play out the rest of this season. But if they play like this, the only thing the Cowboys can do is keep pace. And that's easier said than done.
I still have my concerns with the Eagles defense, though, because the offense did pretty well. But the defense clearly has trouble trying to make big time stops. And while they were successful at it to hold out the Patriots, they weren't very successful holding out the Vikings. They made it within a score. And the Vikings, especially after what we saw against Tampa Bay, they don't seem like a good team to me. That seems like a big time threat. They're just not.
Yeah, I think Philly tried to change who they were. And I think they got back to their identity in the second half of this game. Philly needs to run the football.
Yeah.
As good as A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are, and they're really good, Philly is the best group on the Philadelphia Eagles, both sides of the ball. The trenches, the offensive line, and the defensive line, which is just the Georgia Bulldogs. But in the trenches is where Philly is the best. If Philly sticks to the run game, they'll be fine offensively. Defensively, they had some injuries, some things happened. The end of the day, you're 2-0 and no one's going to complain about that, and you're only going to get better. On the flip side, the Vikings beat themselves. Penalties, turnovers. Mark, the Vikings are 0-2. 1 to 10 scale it for me. How worried are we on the Vikings?
If we're talking about worrying about the Vikings making the playoffs, then we're talking an 8 being scared. If we're talking about the Vikings bouncing back, I'm a little bit in the middle. I have been very critical of Kirk Cousins ever since he was in Washington. And there's no hiding behind that. I have disliked the man. Not taking anything away from what he did the other night, which was absolutely beautiful. 364 yards and 4 touchdowns. Only few quarterbacks can do that. And he's got the wide receivers, and the team obviously has the want to win. My thing is that the Minnesota Vikings come by Thanksgiving, start falling apart, and that starts showing their downfall because Kirk Cousins isn't a young puppy anymore. He can't keep up a full 17-game season.
So, our argument's sake, before I flip it to Dan for a second, if they're out of it, trade deadline time, which I think is in October at some point, do you consider moving on? Because Cousins is a free agent after the year.
It's like the case of the New York Mets, and you have Kirk Cousins. Well, I'm not going to say he's a Hall of Fame quarterback, but it's like Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander. You're going to have to try to get what you can get and get now. And there are teams such as Dan's New York Jets who would benefit from somebody's experience. The question is what the cost would be. That's all. And then, yes, Justin Jefferson as well, I can see being moved if Minnesota is that far out of it.
I don't know if they'd go that far, but all right, Dan, your thoughts there on the Vikings?
I mean, I know the Panthers, the Chargers. I know they're easier teams in my opinion, but they hit the Chiefs, and they hit the Bears. Bears are an up-and-coming team. They're a tough one. 49ers, Packers, especially after we saw on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they did, and even the Saints. I mean, they got a cookie after with the Falcons, but then even the Saints by the time you hit mid-November, this is a time for the Vikings where they really need to turn up a little bit. We saw some flashes on offense. They were able to stay in the game. I mean, I know we get on Kirk Cousins a lot, but he had 4 touchdowns on Thursday. He was one of their bright spots, and I'm just going to be real with y'all with that. But this whole Vikings team, they need to get it together because that schedule does not get any easier. And if you start 0-3, like it's going to be a domino effect. Your season is not. I don't know if the season's over because anything can happen. It's a weaker NFC, but 0-3, and your schedule gets tougher. You face a little bit of the AFC teams, tougher NFC teams. Yeah, it's going to be really, 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 really difficult for Minnesota.
This loss against Philly makes the loss against Tampa look worse.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because no one knows what to expect out of Tampa Bay. But Philly's the class of the NFC. I'd be worried about the Vikings. You guys are right. The offense put up 28 points, but that defense was in shambles most of the game. You coordinator. And listen, I'm not going to say you blow the whole thing up. But listen, if there's a team out there who says, listen, we'll take a chance on Kirk Cousins for the rest of the year, I think you have to do it. And you have to explore what comes next. You build this thing around Justin Jefferson. And you go from there. And defensively, you continue to make the strides. But for right now, I'd be scared if I am the Minnesota Vikings. All right, one quick thing, and then we'll get into today's slate. One word answer, guys. Most impressive what team had the most impressive week last week? Then we'll move into today's stuff.
Detroit.
Okay.
Most impressive. I'm gonna say Cleveland.
Cleveland, that's a good one.
They have, and I know Joe Burrow. They keep making excuses for Joe Burrow. Well, he sucks when he goes to Cleveland. No, that is a tough Bengals team, and Cleveland kicked their ass. That is a tough Bengals team. I don't want to hear that stuff. No excuses.
You know what? Cleveland's a good one. I'm gonna go with the Rams.
Okay, that's a
Going
good
into
one.
Seattle and pulling out a dub. So
People are very high on Seattle for whatever reason. I don't know if they're that high. I don't know.
I was high on Seattle. I'll be honest. I'm high on Seattle. I like their roster. All right. On to today's slate of games. Mark, we got a playoff rematch with the Chiefs and Jaguars, and the Chiefs are getting some reinforcements. Travis Kelce's back, and Chris Jones is going to play.
Well, you got the two biggest distractions that really were the determining factor for week one. No Travis Kelce because of the hyperextended knee, and then no Wall in the beginning of their defensive line. Now, bring in two guys that were absolutely missing. Kelce was not holding out or anything. Chris Jones was. Holdout is over. Kelce is back, and Superman has his lowest lane. Let's put it that way. I don't really think they're going to look that way, but here's how I look at it. And I think
you couldn't have gone Batman and Robin. You had to go Superman.
Superman and Lois Lane. I know. I'm sure Travis Kelce's going to hear this and come over and kick my ass, but we'll leave it at that. No, I have a lot of respect for Mahomes and Kelce, but this game is really going to be which offense can score more. I see both teams high pressure. I see both defenses very weak. And this could be a game that comes down to, a last-second field goal, an overtime first touchdown, an overtime win. But I'm taking this one. I'm taking Jacksonville 38-30.
Ooh. Dan?
Jacksonville's a very good team. They are superb. Chris Jones held out for an entire training camp. Kelce was questionable the entire week, and then he just got cleared to play. I don't know how Kelce's really going to be feeling when game time starts. And the rustiness of Chris Jones, look, the Chiefs are going to be much better, and it's much needed that they get those two back. But it's going to be a close one. I think it's going to be a close one. I think the Chiefs edge it out by maybe 2 points. That Jacksonville team is nothing to play around with. Absolutely not. You got Trevor Lawrence on a different level. And we saw it big time in week one. So watch out for the Jags. Chiefs will hold on to it. They'll make big plays down the stretch when it matters most.
If the Jags want to win this game, Travis Etienne has to have a big game.
Big time.
Yes.
Keep Mahomes off the field. And if the Jags want to be mentioned in the same breath as the Chiefs and the Bills and some of the other AFC teams, this is the game where you earn it.
100%.
You win this game, you're in that AFC heavyweight class. I just don't see Mahomes and company going 0-2. I just don't. The Jags will be very competitive. I think Kelce being back is huge. I think it also helps out, Mark, a guy we talked about before we went live here. It'll help Isaiah Pacheco in the run game. But somebody, for the love of God, teach Kadarius Toney how to catch a football. I'm hoping that was accomplished in this week of practice if you're the Kansas City Chiefs. So, all right, we got Chiefs, Jags. Dan, you brought up the Bengals. They got another divisional game against the Ravens this week. So they go up against the new Cleveland Browns last week and the old Cleveland Browns this week.
The Bengals should be much better against the Ravens today. I think they'll be a better team. They'll obviously have Cleveland in their minds and realize, well, we don't want that to happen again. So we're going to face Baltimore and we're going to, try to at least kick some ass. So they'll win this game. They'll win handily.
Mark?
The Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals. Two teams that should be absolutely considered playoff bound without a question from the beginning of the season. I don't think Joe Burrow's calf is fully healed. You could tell by the way passes were sailing, they were falling short. He was off key. I don't think he's fully healed. I also now look at the Ravens, who really took a hard hit with losing J.K. Dobbins for the season, where he was going to be featured really much to try to take a little bit of the pressure off Lamar Jackson for running the ball and try to focus with Odell Beckham. Obviously, now we're going to see Lamar run a lot more than he did last week. But I expect a big game out of Mark Andrews today, as he's going to get inside and outside. I don't think Cincinnati is going to show up. I think they're going to show out. Baltimore wins this one 21-10.
So the inactives for the Ravens just came out.
Watch two of the guys I think are going to have to go.
Mark Andrews is in the lineup. He is good. But there are names on here that are important, and that's why I'm bringing it up. Marlon Humphrey, out. Marcus Williams, out. On the defensive side. On the offensive side, Tyler Linderbaum and Ronnie Stanley both out. Those are big blows to the offensive line and the secondary of the Baltimore Ravens. Joe Burrow bounces back at home. I hate saying it because I like Baltimore. I love their roster. And every year they get hurt for whatever the reason is. I think the Bengals bounce back in a big way. So, yeah, that. Mark, we got the Seahawks and the Lions, which was a great game last year.
Oh, yeah. I covered the Lions for the NFL Blitzers here, and I was high-tide for this team watching them go down the stretch and the way they ended their season last year. Jared Goff is as good as advertised as when he was in with the Rams. It was a smart trade and made out for both teams. Both teams are benefited from that trade. David Montgomery had a great game. Amon-Ra St. Brown had a good game. I think we're going to hear more from Jahmyr Gibbs today, as he's going to be a little bit more even with David Montgomery. But it's also going to come down to the defense trying to stop the wide receiver combo of Lockett, Jackson, and Metcalf. And that's going to be a very, very, very tough job for names like Cameron Smith and Brian Branch, who will be covering. And you got Kelby Joseph, who's going to have to help cover up top. Not that I don't believe in the Lions. I think they're going to make it close, but I think Seattle wins it by a field goal, 24-21.
Dan, the Seahawks Lions.
That's a dog-ass Lions team. I'm telling you, they are tough. I love the way that they play well on defense. Still have issues with their offense. But to me, with the Lions, the offense is pretty good. They're good enough to get through. They do face a pretty good Seattle team. I think the Lions pull it off, though. That's a really tough Lions team to handle. And let's be real. If Seattle can't beat the Rams, well, I don't know if the Lions are if they're gonna feel better against Detroit.
Seattle's just got to get back to who they are. Again, kind of like Philly, run the ball, get into those receivers, play decent defense. Detroit's had a longer time off. I think Pete Carroll's done this before. So I'm going to roll Pete Carroll and the Seahawks. Although, watch out for your kneecaps, Pete. That's all I'm going to tell you. Watch out for those kneecaps. All right. We got the Monday night slate, too. We got the Saints and the Panthers and the Browns and the Steelers. Mark, which one do you want? Browns, Steelers, or Panthers, Saints?
Man, I'll take on the Panthers Saints. That's going to be a really, really fun football game. A new looking quarterback, in both teams with Bryce Young with the Panthers and Derek Carr. Derek Carr had a 300-yard game, but only came out with one TD last week. And Bryce Young didn't have a great game, but not a bad one either. This game is going to be a little bit tighter than I think a lot of people are going to think, as I think we're going to have a Michael Thomas featured day, as I think Chris Olave will start drawing a little bit more attention over to help out. And that's going to free up Michael Thomas to do some damage. Still with no Alvin Kamara, out on the suspension. This game is going to come very, very close, but I think the Saints edge it out 28-24.
Okay. Dan?
I think Panthers stink. That's my. The New Orleans is far better than them. This will be easy walking victory for them.
Yeah, I'll take the other game here, Browns Steelers, because we talked about impressive wins last week. You can include the 49ers in that conversation because they went into Pittsburgh and smoked the Steelers. Now Cleveland comes down. Big win over the Bengals. But that Steeler offensive line was not good against San Francisco. Last time I checked, Cleveland still has this Myles Garrett guy. He's pretty good.
Damn good.
And I got to tell you, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Cleveland with a full year of Deshaun Watson is better than what people think. I think we overhyped the Steelers a little bit. I like Cleveland, and I like them by 2 scores. Mark, anything on that, Mark or Dan?
Oh, no. It's really going to be a tough game to call. I mean, if Cleveland shows up like they did last week, they're going to dismantle the Steelers.
Mhm.
But it'll be a closer game. I really don't know who to say right now.
I may lean towards the Browns, though. I mean, I like the Browns. They have better playmakers than the Steelers. Steelers are still on an up and coming type of thing, and they're still trying to figure out what their new identity is, new quarterback and new team overall, new receiving core. It's, to me, I feel like that takes time, whereas the Browns are a little more polished. They have people that have been there for a while. I know Deshaun's still fairly new, but he's grasped the playbook pretty well and had a great game on last Sunday. So I certainly think that the Browns should win this game. I like them better than Pittsburgh here.
All right, Mark, the game you're looking forward to the most today. The Dolphins and the Patriots on Sunday night.
I figured he was going to do that because it wouldn't be enough for Mike not to get one on me. The Dolphins Patriots. What can we say about this Dolphins team except probably one of the brightest teams in the NFL right now, especially after last week. And no, I'm not just trying to get on Mike's good side as he's the Dolphin fan here. The Patriots are a shell of what they should be. It is the declining years, which is kind of sad to think about, actually, of Bill Belichick being a head coach in the NFL. It's not going to last forever. Eventually, he's going to have to pass off the reins. I don't think the Patriots really can field the team to match up. Last week's loss, now you're going up against Tyreek Hill, who, as I said this to Mike and Dan before, It would be impressive if it were to happen, but another 200-yard day would be the first time in the NFL ever had back-to-back weeks of 200 yards from the same receiver. I think Miami absolutely blows them out of the water, and it's like 42-5, if that's a possibility.
Okay. Dan?
So this is a matchup to me where, because the Patriots actually did a lot better than I thought they would. So now I'm kind of questioning whether or not I should go with the Dolphins. I think I still am at the end of the day, only because I just think Tua is better at quarterback than Mac Jones is. I think the Patriots, they're not frauds, but they're sort of pretenders. Always, and as long as they have this team lined up, they will always be pretenders. The Dolphins are not pretenders. They have a great receiving core. They have somewhat of a good defense. I like this team, but the Patriots, they'll stay in it. They can be pretty tough. So that's why I'm a little reluctant. But I'm going to pick the Dolphins here.
Tyreek Hill, 6 touchdowns in 6 games against New England. Jalen Waddle, 3 touchdowns in 4 games against New England. Tua's undefeated against the Hoodie. That being said, the Dolphin defense has to stop the run. They have 230 yards rushing last week to the Chargers. New England doesn't have the weaponry on the outside. Stop the run. The Dolphins will win a tight one. I'll go something along the lines similar to last week for Philly, 24-20. I think New England keeps it close. All right. Now I'll let you guys have your fun. It's Jets Cowboys. I'll let you guys go off for a couple of minutes on this one.
I have my eye on you. Don't mess up my quarterback.
Don't worry, Michael will be nice. He'll only pick him up and throw him over, then hit him with the chair.
No, that dude's a beast though. Like he will murder that Jets offensive line. That Jets offensive line is trash right now.
And that's the big concern for me. The Jet running game led by Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook. That's a great one too. And if you want to put Dalvin Cook at 1 and Breece Hall at 2, it doesn't matter. They both complement each other. And no offense to the rest of the Jets offense, besides Garrett Wilson, the Jets have to run the ball and work it with screens, work it on play action as much as they can. Because we saw, during the monsoon last week, that was East Rutherford, New York, Dallas defense obliterated the Giants for 17 points in a blink of an eye. If that happens with the Jets, unfortunately, no, there is no way they're going to come back. However, that being said, we're not talking the Giants, we're talking the Jets. Tony Pollard is going to have to be very efficient in running the ball to help draw up that Jet defensive line and draw up players like Sauce Gardner. Sauce Gardner, CeeDee Lamb is going to be one of the best matchups you're going to see in the NFL this year, and it's going to be fun to watch. Of course, I'm the Dallas fan here, and I think Dallas doesn't win this one in a landslide, even though I would love it. But Dallas wins 35-30.
It's going to be a high scoring game. I think it's going to be a low scoring game. I don't trust both teams' offenses. If both teams have to rely on the running game because you have 2 powerful defenses that could stop, the passing game and all that stuff, it can get to the quarterback. I just don't trust it to be high scoring. I think it's going to be a low scoring game. I agree with Mark, though. I think it will be a Dallas victory. I just think Dallas is better. I think Dak Prescott is a better quarterback and make the bigger plays. I think the Dallas defense is unreal. I think they'll make bigger plays than the Jets. They'll probably have here's what I see happening. I see Dallas making a turnover somewhere on defense and turning it into points, something that the Jets rarely do. I know they did it against Buffalo, but that was a field goal. I'm talking about touchdowns. I think Dallas can take the ball away and score a touchdown. But I do truly believe that. I've seen it happen a couple of times here. So I think Dallas will win this game. It'll probably be like something like a 24 to like 17 or 15, whatever it is. I don't know. Like it will be a close-ish game. Low scoring. That's how I view it. Look, the bottom line is if the Jets want to prove me wrong, just run the football, manage the game, defensive pressure. Because the second Dallas makes big time plays, it's over.
One thing that the Dallas Cowboys should do to we know it was one time one quarterback was seeing ghosts. Dallas should put a section called Cougar Town in each corner of the stadium. Just fill it with hot women. And this way, when Zach's going to throw, he's looking there and not at the players. There we go. There's the best distraction option for this game. Sorry, Dan. I've been saving
Zach
that.
Wilson will probably not be the only person distracted.
Dak's getting married. Dak got married. He's done.
I didn't say Dak, did I? You're the one who brought up Dak.
Those Texas honeys, though, are like some.
Always got to be.
I like the Cowboys too in a close game. One thing I would say is, I'm not sure if the Cowboys do this or not. I may want to put a safety over Garrett Wilson. That way you are daring Alan Lazard and other guys on the outside to beat them. Because if you take Garrett Wilson away, who becomes a predominant threat in the Jets passing game? That's something else I would wonder if the old DQ does before he does a blizzard of blitzes. All right. But I like Dallas as well. All right, rapid fire, and then we'll wrap this thing up. Speaking of this game, which team is the better defense, Cowboys or Jets?
The Cowboys have the better defense because they dominate on all three levels, the line, the linebackers, and the secondary. Not to take anything away from the Jets because they have a damn scary defense as well, but I think the Dallas defense edges it out on that point only.
The Dallas defense scares me. Like, if Daniel Jones is running for his life, well, I have no doubt that Zach Wilson's going to be running for his life. And like I said, that Jet offensive line to me, I just don't think they have it yet. And, if they didn't have it in the preseason and they didn't have it with Aaron Rodgers in the 4 snaps that he played, and they still didn't have it when Zach Wilson was taking hit after hit after hit after hit, this should be a fairly easy game for Dallas. Now, I'm not saying that the Dallas offense will be easy because, of course, the Jet defense can, go up against them pretty well. But that Dallas defense is scary. I think they're better than the Jet defense. And like I said, they're that front line just masterful, just unbelievable. They're all over the field.
Yeah, it's the Cowboys. It's pretty close, though. It's pretty close because Jets have talent everywhere, too, but it's the Cowboys. All right. Outside of this game, Mark, outside of the Cowboy Jet game, what game are you most looking forward to today?
I'm looking for a battle of two rookies, and that's Indianapolis, Houston. I want to see a great game out of Anthony Richardson, and I want to see an amazing game out of CJ Stroud. This is going to be fun. It's going to be exciting, but a name that is going to come up in this game that's going to be very pivotal is Dameon Pierce. He is going to have a monster day, not only rushing the ball, but receiving the ball out of the backfield.
Dan?
Giants, Arizona, for this reason. The
Ooh.
Giants better kick Arizona's ass. You want to get 40-0 out of your heads? This is the game to do it. You better blank Arizona by like 60. If the Giants lose, and I know on SIP, I did say that this wasn't a must win. I've changed my mind in like the last 48 hours. This is a must win. The season's over if the Giants lose. So kick ass.
I'm looking forward to the Niners and the Rams. The Niners have owned the Rams recently, but if the Rams play like they did last week, maybe the Rams reemerge as a contender in the NFC that no one imagined. So there's that. All right. Last one, then we'll get into the last segment. Mark, which 0-1 team needs a win the most?
It's hard not to disagree with Dan and the team he just said, but to me, it's Buffalo. I think if Buffalo does not only just win, but not almost, I would say, blow out Las Vegas. If they go to 0-2, there are big problems because you only have a couple more games to be able to play with the teams that are in that division.
Dan, is your answer the Giants based on what you just said?
Well, that's the game I'm most looking forward to. But I think Buffalo could also use the victory more just because of their playoff aspirations, their Super Bowl aspirations, and the fact that they're just a good team, that had a really tough second half against the New York Jets. I think the Bills could really use it as well.
I'm looking at the Chargers. Every year we want to hype the Chargers up. Justin Herbert's on every other commercial now, trying to be Mahomes 2.0. Win a game. You could have beaten the Dolphins. You choked that one away. If you don't beat this Tennessee team that I really just don't like, I don't know what to say about the Chargers at 0-2. All right. Mark, who's the fantasy player of the day?
Just mentioned him a few minutes ago. Dameon Pierce will not only have 100 yards on the ground, but at least another 50 yards receiving. Dameon Pierce also will have at least one score.
Okay. Dan?
Fantasy player of the day, I am going to say Joe Burrow.
I'm going to go with a guy Mark absolutely loves. Saquon Barkley. The
I
Giants
actually have
get
nothing
back to what
against Saquon. I actually like him.
the Giants get back to what makes them good, running the ball. Saquon has a big day in the desert, and they won't leave him on a cactus. All right. That'll do it for the week 2 edition of the Sunday Sideline Report, sponsored by the Dugout of Millwood. We'll be back next Sunday here on the SAN YouTube page. Follow us on the socials at Sincenity Real on Twitter. We're also on Facebook. And go to the website, www.thesportsinsanitynetwork.com for great blogs, vlogs, planes, trains, and automobiles. Danny Boy, Reginald, Dan Ryans, the old ops guy, Mark Halpern. I'm Mike Rifkin. Thank you for listening to the Week 2 edition of the Sunday Sideline Report. Enjoy your football Sunday, everybody.